I told my Stepson I'm collecting evidence, and he's headed to Juvenile, court for fraud. On President's Day, my 15-year-old stepson said, "It's not a big deal, it's not even real money." He laughed a little, like he expected me to laugh too. I didn't shout. I didn't slam my phone down. I didn't call my husband in like backup. I made one small change. I opened a note on my phone called Timeline, and I typed his sentence word for word. Because in that moment, I realized something scary. He didn't sound guilty. He sounded confident. My name is Marissa. I'm 37. I live outside Columbus, Ohio, in a neighborhood where everyone has a driveway camera and the high school football schedule controls weekends. My husband, Derek, is 40. We've been married 3 years, and my stepson, Caleb, is 15. Smart, funny, and lately, slippery. Caleb's mom, Renee, is also in the picture. She and Derek co-parent, mostly. Not perfectly, but enough that we'd built routines. And in a blended family, routines are everything. Here's what life looked like before this. I worked remotely. Derek worked in operations at a distribution center. Caleb split time between houses. We argued about dishes, screen time, and whether energy drinks should be considered breakfast. Normal problems. Then the first weird thing happened, and it looked like nothing. Bank alert, Feb 3, 8:14 p.m., $1.07, digital purchase. $1.07. I showed Derek and said, "Did you buy something random?" Derek shrugged. "Probably a subscription," he said. "I'll check later." Later is how small problems become big ones. The next morning, another alert. Bank alert, Feb 4, 6:22 a.m., $0 verification charge. Verification charges are never comforting. Then an email hit our shared inbox. Email subject, "Welcome, your new account is ready." No company name in the subject line, just that vague welcome. I clicked it and saw a logo I didn't recognize. I didn't panic yet, because I'm the kind of person who tries to be reasonable first. I told myself, it's spam. It's a glitch. It's nothing. Then the packages started. 2 small boxes on our porch, addressed to Derek. One was a phone accessory. Not expensive, but specific. The second was a prepaid card. I stared at it and felt my stomach tighten. Because nobody sends you prepaid cards by accident. I asked Derek, "Did you order these?" Derek looked genuinely confused. "No," he said. "I didn't." Caleb walked through the kitchen at that exact moment, hoodie up, earbuds in. I watched his eyes flick to the boxes. Just a flick. Then away. And that tiny moment became my first real alarm. Not because it proved anything. Because it told me he recognized something. That night I did the calmest thing I could think of. I started writing down facts. Not feelings. Not accusation. Facts. Timeline? Feb 3, $1.07 charge. Feb 4, $0 verification charge. Feb 4. Welcome email. Feb 6, 2 packages addressed to Derek. If you've ever dealt with money chaos, you know why I did that. When you're stressed, your memory gets foggy. But screenshots don't. 2 days later, Derek's credit monitoring app pinged. Credit monitoring alert. New inquiry detected. Derek's face went pale. He looked at me and said, "I didn't apply for anything." I believed him. Because Derek is many things, but he's not sneaky. He's the guy who saves receipts in his wallet until they turn into confetti. Caleb was on the couch scrolling. Derek said, casual but firm, "Hey, Caleb, did you use my info for anything online?" Caleb didn't even look up. "No," he said. Too fast. Then he added, annoyed, "Why would I do that?" Derek nodded like he accepted it. But I didn't. Because here's what I should have noticed earlier. Kids lie differently than adults. Adults lie with explanations. Kids lie with offense. That weekend, Caleb went back to his mom's, and Derek and I sat at the kitchen table with our laptops open like we were doing taxes. We pulled bank statements. We pulled email logs. We pulled package tracking numbers. And we found a pattern. Small test charges. Then bigger charges that got reversed. Then another verification. Like someone was poking the system to see what would go through. Then I saw it. Email subject, "Your replacement card is on the way." Replacement card. To our address. In Derek's name. I looked at Derek. He whispered, "What the?" And right then, my phone buzzed. It was Renee. Text 9:11 p.m., Renee. "Hey, quick question. Did you guys order Caleb a new phone? He said he's getting one." My stomach dropped. Because Caleb had just told his mom he was getting a new phone. In the same week, Derek's identity was getting replacement cards. I replied carefully. Me. 9:13 p.m. "No, he didn't. Why would he say that?" Renee responded. Renee, 9:15 p.m. "He said you're finally being cool about it." Being cool? That line made my skin crawl. Because it implied Caleb had been pushing, and someone had been saying no, and now he was claiming he'd won. When Caleb came back to our house Monday after school, I decided to talk to him alone first. Not because Derek didn't have the right. Because Caleb always took Derek seriously and he dismissed me as just the stepmom. So I waited until Derek was in the garage. I sat on the edge of the couch and said, "Caleb, I need you to be honest with me." He sighed like I was interrupting his life. "What?" he said. I kept my voice calm. "Are you using Derek's information online?" I asked. Caleb's jaw tightened. He laughed. "No," he said, "you're being paranoid." Then he added, "It's not even real money." That was the sentence. The one I typed into timeline. Because he hadn't denied with logic. He'd minimized with confidence. And that's when I said something I shouldn't have said to a teenager. Not like that. I leaned forward and said, low and serious, "I'm collecting evidence, and if this is fraud, you're going to juvenile court, possibly detention." The room went quiet. Caleb's face changed fast. Not fear first. Anger. He stood up so quickly his phone slid off the couch. He snapped. "You can't say that to me." I stood too. "Yes," I said, "I can." Caleb's eyes flashed. Then he said the one thing that told me I'd hit the truth. He said, "You don't even know what you're talking about." And he ran to his room and slammed the door. Then my phone buzzed again. Bank alert, 5:18 p.m. $499 electronics. And I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't over. That $499 charge didn't stay pending for long. It posted. And when it posted, Derek's calm finally cracked. Not into screaming. Into that quiet, dangerous calm of a man realizing his kid might be the one lighting the fire. Derek came in from the garage, looked at my face and said, "What happened?" I told him exactly what I asked Caleb. Exactly what Caleb said. And exactly what I said back. Derek's shoulders dropped. He didn't scold me for mentioning juvenile court. He just rubbed his forehead and whispered, "Okay, we're handling this now." Handling it meant something specific in our house. It meant facts, not vibes. We knocked on Caleb's door. "Derek sit, calm, open up." Caleb opened the door a crack, eyes hard. Derek held up his phone. "Did you make this charge?" Derek asked. Caleb glanced at the screen and shrugged like it was a weather update. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe it's a glitch." Derek nodded slowly. "Then give me your phone," he said. Caleb's face changed. "No," he snapped. Derek didn't raise his voice. "Now," he said. Caleb tried a new tactic, louder, more emotional. "You guys never trust me," he said. "You treat me like a criminal." I swallowed. Because that word, criminal, came from somewhere. It sounded practiced. Derek held his hand out again. Caleb shoved his phone into Derek's palm like it burned him. Derek didn't scroll through private photos. He didn't snoop like a jealous partner. He went straight to email and shopping confirmations. And within 30 seconds, Derek's jaw tightened. He turned the screen toward me. Email subject, order confirmed. Then another. Email subject, your virtual card is ready. Virtual card. That's when I felt cold. Not because I learned a new word. Because it sounded like a system. Not a one-time mistake. Derek looked at Caleb. "Explain," he said. Caleb's eyes darted. Then he did what teenagers do when cornered. He blamed the friend. "It was Jack's," he said quickly. "He did it. He used my phone." Derek's voice stayed flat. "Who is Jack's?" he asked. Caleb hesitated. Then he said, "A kid from school." Derek nodded once. "Call him," Derek said. Caleb's face went blank. "I don't have his number," he muttered. "Lee." Because his phone was in Derek's hand, and Derek could see the recent texts. Derek didn't say that, though. He just said, "Okay." And that okay was worse than yelling. Because it meant Derek was done arguing. He was moving into consequences. That night, we did 3 things. First, Derek froze his credit. Second, he called the bank fraud department and reported unauthorized activity. Third, we took screenshots and saved everything into a folder labeled receipts. Not to punish Caleb. To stop the bleeding. Caleb sat on his bed, arms crossed, refusing eye contact. He said, "You're ruining my life." Derek answered, "No, you're doing that." Then Caleb did the thing that made my stomach drop the most. He said, "Mom already said you'd freak out." Renee, his bio mom. He told her something. Or she'd told him something. Either way, she was part of the narrative. At 10:47 p.m., Renee called Derek screaming. I could hear her through the speaker. "What did you say to my son?" she yelled. "You threatened him with juvie." Derek's voice stayed calm. "I didn't threaten him," he said. "I told him consequences exist." Renee snapped. "He's a child." Derek replied, "And the bank doesn't care. The court doesn't care. Employers don't care. This is serious." Renee went quiet for a second. Then she said something that changed everything. "Caleb said Marissa hates him," she hissed. "He said she's been trying to get rid of him." My throat tightened. Because there it was. The stepmom villain story. The oldest one in the book. If the kid messes up, blame the stepmom for being too strict. I didn't jump in and defend myself. I've learned defending yourself mid-chaos just gives people more words to twist. So I stayed quiet. And I opened timeline again. Because I had a feeling I was about to need proof of more than charges. I was going to need proof of manipulation. The next morning, Caleb didn't go to school. He said he felt sick. Renee texted Derek. Renee, 7:12 a.m. Caleb is coming back to my house. You're stressing him out. Derek replied, short. Derek, 7:13 a.m. He can come, but his phone stays here, and we're continuing the fraud report. Renee didn't reply. Instead, she showed up. At our front door. Unannounced. And this is where the situation went from financial to family war. Renee stood on our porch with that tight smile people wear when they want to look reasonable while being unreasonable. Give me my son, she said. Derek stepped outside. He can go, Derek said. But his devices stay. Renee laughed. That's controlling, she said. I stayed inside, listening, hands shaking. Renee raised her voice. He's 15, she said. He has rights. Derek replied, calm. He also has consequences, he said. Then Renee leaned closer and said, loud enough for me to hear through the window. You can't send him to detention just because you're mad. Detention. Not juvenile court. Detention. Meaning she knew it was real. She wasn't dismissing the concept. She was trying to make it sound like our fault. Then Caleb came out with a backpack, eyes red, acting like we were monsters. He walked straight past Derek and said, I hate it here. And he left with Renee. The door shut. The house went silent. And Derek looked at me and said, we have to protect ourselves, and we have to protect him. Protect him. Even after this. That's what parenting is. Then Derek's phone buzzed. Email subject, police report submitted, confirmation number. The bank had suggested filing a report for identity theft. Derek did it. And now, like it or not, the system was involved. And I knew the next time we saw Caleb, it wouldn't be about arguments. It would be about receipts. When the system gets involved, life gets weirdly quiet. Not because problems disappear. Because everyone starts watching what they say. Derek and I didn't post vague quotes. We didn't text Renee long paragraphs. We did boring adult steps. We called the school counselor. Not to tell on Caleb. To prevent the next escalation, which I could feel coming. Because kids don't do this alone. There's always an influence. A friend. A forum. A group chat. Something. The counselor, Miss Alvarez, sounded calm on the phone. She said, we can't discuss other students, but we can support Caleb if he's struggling with decision-making and peer pressure. Peer pressure. That phrase can sound like a cliché. Until it's your family's bank account. The same day, Derek got a call back from the officer who took the report. The officer didn't treat us like villains. He treated us like parents who were drowning. He said, if this involves a juvenile, it may go through juvenile court or a diversion program depending on the facts. Diversion. I exhaled when I heard that word. Because I didn't want Caleb ruined. I wanted him stopped. And taught. There's a difference. That night, Caleb called Derek from Renee's phone. His voice was small. Dad, he said, can I come back? Derek didn't jump. He stayed calm. I'll pick you up tomorrow, he said. We're going to talk with rules. Rules. Caleb was quiet. Then he said, Mari sahatesme. My throat tightened again. But Derek answered exactly right. No, he said, Marissa is protecting the house. You made choices. Now we fix them. Fix them. That word became our anchor. Because punishment without repair just creates resentment. The next day, Derek picked Caleb up after school and brought him to our house. Renee didn't come. She sent a text instead. Renee, 3:42 p.m. Do not interrogate him. He's fragile right now. Fragile. Like he was glass. I stared at that text and thought, fragile kids still need boundaries. Caleb walked into our kitchen and stopped. Like he expected the house to reject him. I kept my voice calm. Hey, I said, you hungry? He shrugged. Derek sat at the table with 3 chairs pulled out. No standing over him. No yelling. Just a table. Derek said, here's what we know. He opened the folder on his laptop, not dramatic, just factual. Bank alerts. Email confirmations. Credit inquiry notice. Package tracking. Caleb stared at it like it was a language he couldn't read. Derek said, we need you to tell the truth. Not the story, the truth. Caleb swallowed hard. Then he said, it started as a joke. That's always how it starts. And I didn't interrupt, because I wanted him to keep talking. Caleb continued. Jack said everybody does it. He said it's not stealing if the bank gives it back. That line hit me. Because it matched what Caleb said to me on President's Day. Not even real money. It wasn't just Caleb being reckless. It was Caleb being taught a false reality. Derek asked one question. Did you use my info? He said. Caleb nodded barely. Yes, he whispered. Derek didn't explode. He closed his eyes for a second, then opened them. Okay, he said. Thank you for telling the truth. Then Derek said the sentence that changed the tone. Now we repair, he said. Caleb blinked. Repair. Not just punishment. Derek explained, calm. You will cooperate with the bank and the report. You will stop all online spending. You will give up devices except schoolwork, and you will work to pay back anything that didn't get reversed. Caleb's eyes widened. I don't have money, he said. Derek nodded. Then you'll work, he said. Yard work, extra chores, part-time job if we can. Caleb's voice cracked. Renee said you can't, he said. Derek leaned forward. I can, he said, and I will because I'm your dad. Then it was my turn. And I chose my words carefully, because this part matters for blended families. I said, Caleb, I need to apologize for one thing. Caleb looked up, suspicious. I shouldn't have said you're going to detention to scare you, I said. I was scared, but you're still responsible. Caleb swallowed. Then he said, almost childlike, I didn't think it would get this big. That's the line teens say when the internet turns into real life. I nodded slowly. That's why adults exist, I said. To help you see size. Caleb's eyes filled. Then he said, Are you guys calling the cops on me? I hate that kids say the cops like it's a monster. Derek kept his voice steady. We filed a report because our identity was used, he said. We didn't do it to hurt you. We did it to stop it, and the system may give you a chance to repair without detention if you cooperate. Cooperate. That word became the second anchor. Caleb nodded. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket. He froze. Derek held his hand out calmly. Caleb handed over the phone. Derek didn't scroll through everything. He opened the messages from Jax. And right there in the thread was the most chilling line. Text 2:18 p.m. Jax. If your dad finds out, blame your stepmom. They always believe that. My stomach went cold. Because that wasn't teenage stupidity. That was strategy. And now I had a receipt that explained the entire Marissa hates me narrative. Derek stared at the screen. Caleb's face crumpled. He whispered. He told me to say that. Derek didn't even look at me at first. He looked at Caleb and said, You let someone turn your family into a shield. Then he finally looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something rare, a regret. Not for me. For Caleb. Because this was bigger than money now. This was about who Caleb was becoming. That night, we made a plan. In writing. Device rules. School contact. Bank steps. Counseling appointment. And Derek sent one message to Renee. Derek, 9:04 p.m. We found texts instructing Caleb to blame Marissa. Please stop feeding that narrative. It's harming him. Renee replied. Renee, 9:12 p.m. You're exaggerating. He's a kid. And that's when I realized Renee wasn't going to help. She was going to protect denial. So we would have to protect reality. Because the next step was juvenile intake. And denial doesn't work in front of a judge. The juvenile intake meeting wasn't like TV. No shouting. No dramatic judge speeches. It was fluorescent lighting, clipboards, and a woman behind a desk who looked tired in the way of someone who sees the same family patterns every day. Derek and I sat on one side. Caleb sat next to Derek, knees bouncing. Renee showed up late, perfume strong, face set. And the second she sat down, she whispered to Caleb, This is your dad's fault. I felt my hands go cold. Because she couldn't even wait. The intake officer introduced herself and said, This is a fact-finding meeting. We're not here to shame. We're here to address behavior and prevent repetition. Prevent repetition. That's the phrase I clung to. She asked Caleb questions. Did you do it? Do you understand? Were you pressured? Are you willing to participate in a diversion plan? Caleb answered quietly. Yes. 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 Then Renee jumped in. He's a good boy, she said. He's being targeted by adults who don't like him. Adults. Plural. Meaning me. The intake officer looked at Renee, calm. Ma'am, she said, this is about Caleb's actions. Renee smiled tightly. I understand, she said. But he's been under stress at his dad's house. Stress. Because of the stepmom. I watched Caleb's face. He looked ashamed. Because here's what kids learn when a parent blames others. They learn they don't have to grow. The intake officer asked for documentation. Derek provided the bank statements, the report number, and the screenshots we could share. Then Derek, very carefully, asked to show one thing. Not to attack anyone. To clarify. The text from Jax. Text, blame your stepmom. The intake officer's eyebrows lifted slightly. Renee's face tightened. Caleb stared at the floor. The officer said, calmly. So there was an attempt to shift blame. Renee snapped. That's just teen talk. The officer nodded. Teen talk becomes adult behavior if we excuse it, she said. That sentence hit like a bell. Because it was the first time someone neutral said what I'd been feeling. Then the officer offered a diversion plan. Community service hours. Mandatory counseling. No unsupervised access to financial accounts or devices. Restitution if needed. And a warning that future incidents could lead to stricter consequences. Caleb nodded like he'd finally realized life was real. Renee crossed her arms. This is excessive, she said. The officer didn't argue. She just said, this is an opportunity. Opportunity. That word mattered. Because I didn't want Caleb labeled forever. I wanted him redirected. After the meeting, we walked out into the parking lot. Caleb looked small. He whispered to Derek, I'm sorry. Derek nodded, but he didn't hug him yet. Not because he didn't love him, because sometimes kids need to sit with discomfort to learn. Renee turned to me, finally. She said, with a smile that wasn't friendly, happy now. I wanted to say 100 things. Instead, I chose one sentence. I'm not happy, I said calmly. I'm relieved he's getting help. Renee scoffed. He doesn't need help, she snapped. He needs you to stop threatening him. Threatening. That word again. I took a breath. I apologize for my wording, I said. I didn't apologize for boundaries. Renee's eyes narrowed. Then she grabbed Caleb's shoulder and said, come on, we're leaving. Derek stepped forward. No, he said calm. Caleb is coming with us this week. It's our time. Renee's face went red. You're stealing him, she hissed. Derek didn't react. He said, this is court involved now. We follow the schedule. Renee stormed off. Caleb watched her go, face twisted. And I felt something complicated. Because Renee's denial wasn't just annoying. It was dangerous. That week at our house, Caleb followed the device rules. Not perfectly, but enough. He showed up to his first counseling appointment, shoulders tense. The counselor, Mr. Patel, spoke to Caleb privately first. Then he spoke to us. He said, Caleb doesn't believe he can be respected without performing. Performing. Like showing off. Like impressing a friend. Mr. Patel continued. This behavior wasn't about money. It was about status and belonging. Belonging. That word broke my heart a little. Because in blended families, belonging gets complicated fast. That night, I sat with Caleb at the kitchen table while he did community service paperwork. I said quietly, Caleb, you do belong here. He didn't look up. He whispered, Renee says you want me gone. I took a breath. I want you safe, I said, and I want my marriage safe, and I want our house honest. Caleb swallowed. Then he said, I thought you hated me. I shook my head. I hated being lied to, I said. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. And for the first time in weeks, he looked like a kid again, not a little adult trying to outrun consequences. Then my phone buzzed. School email subject, disciplinary concern, device misuse. My stomach dropped. Because even as we tried to stabilize home, school was calling. And I knew we were about to learn whether Caleb's change was real or temporary. The school email wasn't about a fight. It was about a laptop. A school-issued laptop that had been used to access restricted sites, and the IT department flagged it. The language was polite. But the message was clear. This pattern wasn't isolated to our house. So Derek and I went to the school the next morning. Caleb sat beside us in the office, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles looked white. The assistant principal was calm. She said, we're not here to label Caleb, we're here to set guardrails. Guardrails. Another word for boundaries. She explained the device logs showed late-night access attempts, not necessarily successful. Caleb admitted he'd tried, not because he wanted to steal, because he felt panicked about his phone being gone. The counselor at school said something that stuck with me. She said, teens replace one dopamine loop with another if we don't give them a healthier one. Dopamine loop. In normal language, that meant he was chasing the rush. So we did something that sounds boring but changed everything. We got structured. A written schedule on the fridge. Homework block. Gym time. Job application time. Counseling. Community service. And we took Caleb to open a teen checking account that required adult oversight. Not to control him forever. To teach him, slowly, what real money actually means. Caleb got a part-time job at a grocery store bagging groceries on weekends. He hated it at first. Then he started liking the predictability. He started sleeping more. He started looking less haunted. Renee still fought the process. She sent texts that tried to pull Caleb back into denial. Renee. Text. They're overreacting. You don't need therapy. Caleb showed Derek the texts without being asked. That mattered. Because the real sign of growth isn't perfect behavior. It's honesty. Months passed. Caleb completed his community service. He attended counseling consistently. He made restitution payments. Small amounts, but consistent. And at the final diversion review, the officer said, I'm closing the case contingent on continued good behavior. Closing the case. Caleb exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for half a year. In the car, he looked at Derek and said, I'm sorry I did that to you. Derek nodded. I'm sorry I didn't catch it earlier, he said, but you're doing the work now. Then Caleb looked at me. He hesitated. Then he said, I'm sorry you had to be the bad guy. Bad guy. I shook my head gently. I'm not the bad guy, I said. I'm the adult. And then I said something else, because it mattered. I'm also sorry, I said. I shouldn't have used detention as a threat. I should have stayed calmer. Caleb nodded, eyes wet. I deserved consequences though, he said quietly. That sentence was the real ending, not the case closure. That. Because it meant he finally understood. Final update. Caleb and I aren't best friends. We're not the fake social media version of a blended family. But we're real. He tells me the truth more often now. He asks before he downloads things. He's careful with devices. He still has moments of attitude because he's 15. But the secretive edge is gone. Derek and I are okay too. Not untouched. But stronger in a weird way. Because we learned how to act like a team when it mattered. And Renee. She's still Renee. Sometimes she participates in reality. Sometimes she tries to rewrite it. But now there's a boundary in place. The system saw the pattern once. We won't let it build again. If you're listening and you're thinking, I would never say juvenile court to a kid. I get it. I don't recommend it. But I also want to say this. The most dangerous thing we can do with teenagers is pretend consequences are imaginary. They're not. And the smartest thing we did after my worst sentence was stop talking in circles and start building structure. Because structure is what saved our house. Here's what we learned from this story. First, the smart move isn't screaming, it's documenting. Dates, alerts, emails, and clear boundaries beat panic every time. Second, if a teen is minimizing harm with phrases like, it's not real, take that seriously. That mindset is the real risk. Third, consequences without repair create resentment. Repair without consequences creates repetition. You need both. Fourth, in blended families, be careful about the step-parent villain narrative. If someone is coaching a kid to blame you, that's not parenting, that's manipulation. And finally, structure is not punishment. Structure is safety. If you like calm, realistic long story times with receipts, clean timelines, and real closure, subscribe to the channel. That's what we do here.